How's it going, everyone? BrewUnited here with Final Fantasy II Part 2, and this is Cecil from the Paladin stage all the way into the underworld, trying to get back up to the surface, and all the story in between. Characters and plots, fights, all the things. So what I'd like to show you today is that. Just a reminder, this is a second part of a four-part series. If you haven't seen the first part, you can see it here. And what I'd like to demonstrate in this is really a complete playthrough on the four parts. It's roughly a 20-hour game, and it is not easily squeezed into even 4 30-minute sections. So stick around. Let's start the video. Part 2. So where did we leave off? Well, Cecil had just become a paladin, so we're making our way back down Mount Ordeals. One of the first things you'll notice is that Cecil has 600 hit points, which was more than he had before, even though he was, I forget what level. He was a pretty decent level, 20-something maybe. So here we have Cecil and everyone gaining how many levels? Looks like Cecil is, wow, still gaining levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Was that 7? So he's level 8. Yeah, level 8. So Cecil went from being a level 1 paladin to a level 8 paladin. So we're going to work our way over here. Let's just save, because we haven't saved in a while. Alright, so now we're all rested up, and the next thing we're going to need to do is to head back down the mountain and head to Mysidia. If you remember, that's where we left off with the paladin quest from the last time. So you're going to be immediately greeted when you walk back in there with the same crew that wished you well on your journey last time. And Paladin and also Taurea, as you remember, are still part of our party. As I mentioned in the last video, that Paladin were told to spy on you. Ultimately, you've gained their trust, and actually you've gained the trust of the elders of Mysidia. So even Cecil admits they did the right thing. I mean, he was a dark knight. He was doing all kinds of evil stuff, and he went up Mount Ordeals with the sole purpose of becoming a paladin. So the Mysidian legend really isn't just the Mysidian legend, and what it's describing here really is the paladin Cecil and also another member, which we'll get into in a minute, actually being the Dark. And it actually is telegraphing here really what some of the next steps in the game are. So all of the steps we've led up to so far have gained us, Cecil being a paladin. We're also then going to head a little bit further into the game, ultimately heading towards the moon, which this is foreshadowing all of that. And one of the things that's been blocked off to us so far, you remember we took the boat trip with Yang, is we're trying to get back to Baron. Baron has been the objective for quite some time, to get back there and get the ship. So we were running around with cloth armor before. You could see now we have paladin armor. So it was cloth armor and a sword, and now that we're back here, we actually can equip and purchase that. So what we're doing now right now is we're taking the Serpent Road back to Baron. Baron was the initial city in the first game. Baron had the Serpent Road blocked off after we had already stolen the crystal from the people of Mysidia at the beginning of the game. So now we're back in Baron with some creepy green light. And we're sneaking back in. Who do we run into but the first person? And one of the little alcoves here is going to be Yang. So we end up fighting him. I fast forwarded through that. You get the key to the city of Baron, the castle actually, and that seemed like it went really quick. But honestly, it's a fight. You just have to fight Yang, basically bring him back to his senses, and let's go ahead and rest up because we got a lot more going on right now. So once you have the key, you're going to want to go in this little hole here, a little secret door of sorts. It was locked previously, and we're going to take this tunnel, and we're going to skip a little bit of this because it really is just a lot of walking and monster fights, and really doesn't add much to the story. So you get through here, you're in the waterway, you're actually able to go through this door down at the bottom of the castle, and your goal here is to find Cid. If you remember, we need the airship to be able to have any chance against Baron's air forces. So do you remember Bagan? That was from the first game. Paladin immediately smell something wrong with him. Are like, hey, this guy's a monster. So he was the one from the beginning of the game that was in the king's ear, talking to him about what a horrible person you were, and really set you on the path of leaving with Cain, if you remember that. So Bacon's a pretty easy fight. Just take out his arms, and there you go. We just fast forward through that. Take out his arms, take out him. He's not really that big of a deal. And Paladin Porm, just recommend again that you need to trust them. So the king, we actually find out here, is one of the first of 4 of the Fiends of Elements. And he is related to water. So the easiest way to take him out is just keep casting lightning and, you know, work your way through him. So here, let's fast forward through that. We defeated him. Kind of a quick fight, right? Just of course it's quick when you fast forward and skip out some of the video. So the next step we have here is meeting up with Sid. He just broke out of a jail that the king had put him in, and we're going to head out to get in the airship. Paladin Porm coming behind. So this part, for me, was really a sad part of the game. You know, before video graphics, CGI, like Final Fantasy VII, where it really pulled you in with that. This was a memorable piece. So the walls start closing in from the boss you just defeated, and Paladin Porm sacrificed themselves. You can see here through a little bit of quick motion here into stone. And here they sit. Taurea tries to heal them, but to no avail. He's ultimately not going to be able to do anything. So the music kicks in, sad music, and here we sit, frozen. Taurea just trying to do everything he can here. Heal, and nothing. Oh, that brings me back. I remember feeling like, oh man, I've just lost my 2 crazy casters here. And Sid, you know, throwing in his 20 cents there to avenge them. And let's head to the Enterprise. What a great name. How many ships have been named the Enterprise? Star Trek fans out there, anyone? And ultimately, we're off to take care of Golbez, which is, you know, at this point in the game, the evil mastermind of all the things. So here we go back to the tower that they're holding Rosa. If you remember Rosa in the last game, the love interest of Cecil, was taken captive with Cain, your alleged friend from the past, and also Golbez. So he comes up with a plan. He says, hey, why don't I go out and tell Cecil that if he gets the last crystal, that I'll go ahead and trade Rosa for him. So Golbez previously didn't want anything to do with Cain. You know, didn't want him to do any type of mission. But I guess he's getting desperate now because he's seeing people getting defeated that are a lot more powerful than what we thought in the past. So we're going to put this in fast forward here a little bit. Just getting down the Enterprise. I mean, it's I want to show you how we get there. But it's kind of a long trip, if not. So fast forward times 6%. And here comes the ship from the former Red Wings, which is piloted by Cain, and basically tells the same story that I mentioned earlier, the crystal for Rosa. So the crystal that we need to go get is actually down in a cave being guarded by a Dark Elf. We'll see that in a little bit. And here we are in Taurea. So Taurea is actually ruled by 8 clerics, and here they are. So you find out, as we mentioned earlier, that the Dark Elf is hiding out in a cave that has a spell that is protected by magic that stops magnetic things. And there's really not an easy way to get there. In fact, there isn't a way other than by using a black chocobo. One of the things we're going to see here is a friend from the past. You'll notice Edward. So Edward was really useless. You know, that was my former comment. I'd forgotten that he's not actually so useless in this part of the game. Even though he doesn't actually join your party, he has a certain crystal and a twin harp. Not a crystal. What am I saying? Crystal. It's twin harp. He has a twin harp, and you actually will use that. So let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit to get the black chocobo, fly over to the cave where we have the Dark Elf. So we're in the cave of Magnus, immediately you're met when you walk in there that anything you're wearing that's metallic is basically gonna hamper you. So you have to take quite a bit of that off before you get to them. If not, you're gonna have a lot of fights with people that are just completely incapacitated. So the threat from him is, hey, you know, you have no metal ability to hurt me. Basically, I'm this super-powered dark elf. And we're going to fast forward here again because, you know, it's just, there's a lot of fight going on. And you actually can't defeat him in this first go-round. You can see we're just getting absolutely owned by the dark elf. All of a sudden, an item comes into play. If you remember, we talked about Edward and the twin harp. So the twin harp mirrors anything that he plays over a distance. So he goes there, he grabs the twin harp, and he starts playing, you know, the Edward song is what I call it, the same jingle that he plays from the beginning. This is a song that he learned, apparently, to ward off dark fairies, so to be able to take their power away. So one of the things that the twin harp does, now it starts synchronizing with the harp that we have, and it has an immediate effect on the dark elf. So now we're fighting the dark elf with the ability to have all of our metal weapons on. We're not hindered by that anymore. So you can see here, I'm just absolutely loading up, putting all that back on, you know, so we have a much better defense. We have a much better chance of defeating him. All right, so round 2 here, buddy boy. It's going to be a lot better now. So you're also healed at 100%. He casts what used to be completely decimating spells on you. Fire 2, you know, lightning 2, and ice 2. You'll see what damage it does. Very little. So let's go ahead and defeat him. It's a lot easier with video editing. You can see I gained a level there. Not really the end of the world. So, all right. We've got him. He's obviously confused that that music made its way in. He thought he was completely invulnerable to any type of metal weapons. And you actually pick up a crystal. And it's the Crystal of Earth. So back to the castle. First thing I'm going to want to do here is probably to check in with Edward. I think there's a scene there. Yeah, here we go. And we break out into our party and we actually start thanking him for what he did there. You know, he's not so useless, right? I mean, he's useless as a character, but as a plot device, I think he was pretty effective here. It was kind of a funny little part. I didn't like having to go through the cave with no metal equipment on, because that's just a pain. I mean, you're relying on Tella's magic. That's not really that great. So here you go meet with the clerics again. They're the ones who initially said, hey, you can go get the Crystal of Earth from the cave. And you're met with this booming voice that you can't hear. You just have to read the booming voice, but the music brings that in. I wish they would remaster this game like they did with Final Fantasy VII. I think to me it was equally as good a game. I mean, with your imagination back in the day in 91, you could see what the potential was there. And here we are with Kain again. So Kain shows back up, and he says to you, hey, just come up and follow me back to where we're holding Rosa. It looks like you're teleporting up in the air. Don't look like you're actually moving. They could have done something more with that. So here we are in a tower. I actually recommend sticking around with some of these puppets here. There's the Marion and the puppets. I guess you could call this the master of puppets. You know, Metallica reference. You can sit here and just keep killing the puppets. He'll keep spawning them and spawning them, and just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. You can get quite a few levels doing this, and you know, I'm just showing you here. It will go on forever. So as much as your boredom versus grinding out a game can stand it, I would say sit here and do this for a while. You know, get a few levels, because every level in this game makes everything else a bit easier. In fact, I'm going to show you a trick on the 4th video of bringing back an old save game. You're going to have a pretty good laugh at that if you catch that part. So you can see here, getting levels is what it's about. I actually did this a couple more times, and I was going to show a lot more of that, what you can do. But honestly, just in the sake of time, let's go through it. So this boss used to be a real pain for me, and the Magus sisters. You have to kill them in a certain order. And one of them does a wall, one of them does a fire attack off the wall, and the other one heals. So they're all working in conjunction, but if you actually take one of them out, what happens is they start kind of misfiring. They'll start casting on themselves. You can bounce things off them. It becomes a lot of fun. I mean, I think there's a couple of fights like this in the game where you can just sit here and take one of them out. They end up hurting each other. I think Dr. Luge, I think is his name, in probably the third video, or even in this one, I forget where it'll actually fall out, but that's a fun fight because the creature actually starts hitting him, or he starts hitting the creature. So here we go. We're about to take them all out, and that was actually kind of easy compared to the way it used to be, or at least the way it used to be in my memory. Oh no, it failed. Okay. So let's progress a little bit further. Okay, so now we've made it to our good friend Golbez, if you remember from earlier in the game. And we're actually talking about the crystal. He plays coy the entire time. I mean, he's kind of like the prototypical bad guy, right? You know, hey, give me the crystal. Oh, you know, where's Rosa? Rosa, who's Rosa? Blah, blah, blah. But if you remember one thing, that Tella's got a serious grudge with this guy because of his daughter dying. So he immediately breaks into a fight with him. He starts casting all the spells that he used to have before. And Golbez is like, you know, come on, man. These things are not going to do anything to me. You know, even all the level 3s. And so Tella just breaks out Medio. You know, and he knows it's going to take him out and ultimately kill him. But he's also, you know, plotting his revenge for the death of his daughter. So here he casts Medio. I think I talked about in the past the dreaded 4 9s. There we go. And Golbez is, in brackets, air quotes, what have you, defeated. And you're soon to find out that... I don't know why that happens in the game. Some things get defeated and they're gone. They're done. And you know, Golbez is one of those where you just keep taking him out and keep taking him out. And there's a couple more like that as I'll show you in the next one. So he's done. He's tapped. I think he used his hit points as magic points there. And Cain is, as you can see, incapacitated. And the thing with Cain is that his control that came from Golbez is now gone. So you're actually able to get Cain as a character very shortly. And you'll notice that Golbez has finger lightning. So poof, there he goes, knocks Cecil back. And this is an interesting part because this is a bit of foreshadowing here. He sees him and says, who are you? And he's an interesting character to Cecil that you'll find out in right near the end game. He's actually very close to Cecil, we'll just put that. So a near miss there on Rosa's life. Interesting, there's going to be like this huge heavyweight ball sitting over her head ready to crush her. And Rosa is definitely, as you can see, that's like some pixelated kissing going on there. Cain is just putting his head down. And, you know, this is foreshadowing really their relationship. And ultimately, as I mentioned, Cain also has a thing for Rosa. So all is forgiven. You know, Cain, hey, just go ahead and betray us. That's cool. Why don't you go ahead and join the party along with Rosa? Not a good idea. You'll find that out later. So right as we're leaving, guess what? You're caught up in another boss fight. And this boss fight is going to be one of the 4 Fiends of Elements. And this one is Vovalis, which I believe is the wind. And she thinks she's got something on you now because, you know, your main caster's gone. Cain is really useful in this fight. You'll see that in a second. He's able to go in the air. And when she spins into a kind of tornado-looking shape, as you can see here, he's able to come down, hit her, and then break her out of that. So if she remains in that, she's able to do a ton of damage to you and just continue hitting you with impunity. And you can see there, it takes you down to 1 hit point. So it's a tough fight if you don't really fight her in the correct way. Hit her with everything you got is basically the only way. And keep Kain jumping. You know, you can see that some of the later fights, Kain's just as good on just straight out hitting with the fight option, but jump is really his unique option to hit people in the back row and do a lot of damage. So with Valvalis done, the tower starts falling, the whole place is about to go under, and Rosa comes out and saves the day, basically says, hold on to me, and casts some form of exit there, as you can see. So you get teleported out. I've never seen exit work as powerful as this. Took us all the way back to Cecil's room in Baron. Normally it'll just, you know, take you out of the dungeon. So that's quite a teleport. Must be a really powerful version of it or something. So this part is really telling you a lot of what's going on. You know, Kain saying a lot of the backstory that all the crystals that they've gotten so far are actually not all the crystals. You know, these are just the ones of above ground. So part of the game is not just playing above the ground, it's actually you're about to go under. So the dark crystals, I feel like the Skeksis and all that Jim Henson show from back in the 80s. The Dark Crystal. What a great movie, by the way. Wasn't it? I don't know if you've seen it, but if you haven't, seriously, watch it. What are you doing? So you find out you've only gathered half the crystals now. And you're going to head to figure out a way to actually get down into the underworld. So that's actually a part of the game that, man, that seemed like it took forever to get down in the underworld back in the day. And the light and the dark crystals also harken back to the Mysidian legend of the light and the dark. You know, this whole game is about the light and the dark, the good and the bad, that type of thing. And you can see that also there was a magma key that Kain happened to have in his pocket. So just a short flight around from Baron, you're going to come to this little tiny village on an island. And the first thing you're going to do when you get there, the city's name's, or village, city, no way, it's a village, it's Agart. You throw the magma key down the well, and that starts all kinds of chaos going on that starts erupting and, you know, ultimately opens a hole down to the underworld. So I'm wondering if this at some point, like, how was this set up? You know, was that open at one point, then they sealed it, and then they had this magic magma key that would open it? It's kind of a lot of plot holes here in my book. So here it is getting blown up. Don't mind me just throwing a key down the well, you know, making this huge volcanic explosion that blows a hole in your mountain range. Yeah, everyone's just walking around. Actually, I talked to this person just to see if they'd say anything. It's the same canned message that they would have said before. So you go over there, and the first thing you can do now is you go to the underworld. First thing when you head to the underworld is you're met with the Red Wings. They've made their way down there. I don't know how they've made their way down there because I believe you have the only path down there. And you're also met with some tanks, and the tanks are actually from one of the underworld cities that's ran by the dwarves. So you're in between these two armies fighting. You take some unfortunate damage to the ship, and the ship loses enough integrity it starts heading into a nosedive. So you end up crashing with the Enterprise, in brackets. And here we go. So you wake up as Cecil normally does. Seems like half the game Cecil's waking up from some type of, as I mentioned in the first game, calamity. So everyone else is up, you're getting up, and you find your surroundings, in pretty dire straits. So your ship is mostly inoperable. You have to get off the ship, and you're met with the only place you can go to is the Dwarven City. So we're going to head into the Dwarven City, the castle of the dwarves. We're going to meet up with the king, and we're going to find out some unfortunate news. Is the crystals that we're searching for. So if you remember the 4 up in the above world and the 4 down here, it's 2 out of the 4 have already been taken. So 1 is behind the throne room here, and you start noticing that that's actually not good news. So Sid's heading off. He says, hey, we can fly down here. I need to do some repairs on the ship. Put some mystic silver on the hull. I'll take it easy, guys. I'm off. And there he goes. So Sid left the party. You'll notice that Yang notices something going on behind the throne. And when he does, it leads you to a fight that you find out that the 2 crystals are already gone. You're about to, potentially lose the 3rd crystal. And the 4th one, we're going to find out, is a little bit more under lock and key. But even then, it's, as you can tell from the game, we're losing all the crystals. It's kind of like the theme of Cecil's life is losing the crystals. So you run into a fight here that I remember being such a pain. It was all these different boss fights to me used to be a lot more challenging than they are now. So I'm actually playing the same physical copy of the game that I used to own in 1991. But it seems so much easier. Maybe it's just because, different brain, that I've got on me now. I've played so many video games that this is actually simplistic. So yet again, we're just going to plow through on a multiplier here by about 6 times speed and work our way through this fight. So there we go. And we're done. And as soon as we defeat the doll here, it really doesn't help us much because Golbez has actually been alerted of where the crystal is, and as always, Golbez seems to be winning everything. So he teleports in somehow. I don't know why he just didn't teleport in before. Maybe he just needed a location on it. So he starts as an overpowered Golbez, and despite the fact that Tella defeated him and cast Shadow, Shadow just starts with a spell that I wish we could actually get in the game, which is Demolish. Demolish just insta-kills everyone here. And all hope looks like it's about to be lost. So, guess who's next? Cecil. Cecil's the last member standing. Last person standing, Cecil, what are you going to do? And poof! Out comes an old familiar. If you remember, that was the same looking dragon from the beginning of the game, from Rydia's mom. And who but anyone that pops in the party but Rydia. So Rydia is a fantastic character and also a fantastic caster, with she can also do black magic and as a caller, but she's lost the white magic at this point. So one of the things you learn is she's become more powerful in certain areas, but she's not as versatile. And in this fight, I was lucky to get both Rosa and Rydia up. Titan is just one of the best spells here to take Golbez out. So we defeat Golbez now for a 2nd time. So 2 times now, Golbez. I think there's probably a 3rd. We seem to fight Golbez all the time in his fiends. But even though we've defeated Golbez, and Rydia tells her story of what happened and, all the things that led her to become who she is now, a little bit older, time moves differently, and also in the classic style of Golbez, he now changes into like this creepy hand, and the hand makes its way up, and guess what it does? It takes the crystal. So here we go. Now we've lost all the crystals, all 7 of the crystals, with the exception of the last one, and we're about to find out all about what that one is. So here we're back with the king. And hey, sorry, Golbez took the crystal. and the king tells you, hey, the last one, you gotta protect it. And it's in a sealed cave to the northwest, and you need a key to get into it. It hasn't stopped Golbez in the past, so what we're actually going to do right now is to work our way to the Tower of Babel. This is to get back into the surface world, and the whole goal of this is to ultimately get the ship to come back to get to that cave, because now we have a key to be able to open it. And here we are in the tower. So we're going to pause right there, and up soon is going to be part 3. Good place to stop, and we'll show part 3 very soon. And thank you for watching the second part of Final Fantasy II.